the Guardians didn't quite have enough to do what it takes to finish off the road trip with the winning record. Maybe what they needed at the end was just a little bit of dad strength. They happen to be missing it.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the show today. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to get started today. I want to thank all of our everydayers making this your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcast. Shout out to Everydayer Scott. Very positive. Sorry, I didn't get back to you about draft stuff. If we have some time, we're going to work it into today's show. For those who do not know me, I'm Jeff Ellis, one of the original hosts here on Locked On MLB side of things. Before that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scout and 24/7 nationally. And then I was your fifth favorite blogger at just about every Cleveland sports blog that has existed, as well as at Prospects Live.
Maybe you know me, maybe you don't. I'm Justin Latta. I've been here for a little over a year and a half now. I've been at one time the editor of Guardians Baseball / Indians Baseball Insider. I've also been a freelancer at the News Herald and the Morning Journal, covering the Guardians and their minor league system for various outlets since 2007. And of course, this is Locked On Guardians, your daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. And we dive into all things going on with your Cleveland Guardians every day, from the majors, the minors, and of course, the draft. So if you need your daily fix of Guardians discussion, you've come to the right place. We are glad to have you. Shout out to everydayer Joe K. Let me know he was listening on different areas, not YouTube. He said he's going to leave a comment one of there, but it was nice to hear that he's listening pretty much everywhere at this point. So appreciate all you guys, and happy Father's Day. Jeff, I hope you had a good Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Quick story too. If you can either thank or say thanks sarcastically to my late father. He once asked my mom, he was the coach of my T-ball team when I was like 5. And I asked him, Coach, if we get hurt, do we get to go home? And he was severely concerned I wasn't going to like baseball, because baseball is my dad's favorite thing in the world. So thanks, Dad. Now I'm the host of a podcast with you, Jeff. And whether you hate it or love it, you can thank my late father for that.
No, it's one of those things. My dad was definitely the one, as I'll say, you have him to blame for my interest in stats, because he'd always be like, hey, what's that guy doing? What's this guy doing? And then we would look at number. That was a way to impress my dad at a young age, was just having a lot of knowledge. So a boy doesn't want to impress his dad? So
sure,
a pathway to that for me as well. It was a good day. We went out and had some fun here. No baseball playing, but still, it was a good day. And I know people are going to get upset about a 4-4 road trip, but it's still a 4-4 road trip, and they faced some tough pitching at the second half, and they didn't have Jose for these last 2 games, and they, again, fought their way back. The Marlins are trash, but Toronto is supposed to be a good team. They're having their struggles, and Cincinnati's been red hot of late. I don't think if you're looking at this last road trip as something that exposed this team, I don't know what to tell you. I think you're just looking for failure instead of taking the positive from this, which is, hey, guess what? You're going to have 4-4 situations. No, I don't think you or I think this is a 100-win team, but we think it is a team that can win this division. So yeah, these things happen.
Yeah, they've only got to go 500 or so to win 90 games. I think that's pretty realistic with where this bullpen has been. And it's a fluctuating offense. Sometimes this offense is running hot, sometimes it's running cold. It definitely needs some additions to the offense to make it run the way I think it can run. And we'll talk about that today. We'll talk about, what the Guardians do when they're going well, and what they're not doing well when they're playing bad. We'll talk about that. And we're going to talk about the rough stretch the Guardians have coming up, just in terms of days and games, and a little bit the schedule too. But one of the things I did learn early about baseball from my dad was, if you go 500 on the road and you play well at home, that's generally a recipe for success. Playing 500 on the road is generally good. And the Guardians do have a good road record this year, and they've actually played the least amount of games, I think, in baseball at home up until this point, which bodes well for them going down the stretch. They're going to have a lot of home games in the second half. So they've generally done pretty well on the road. And they were a couple of, swings and a couple of bounces of the ball here and there from going 5-3 or 6-2 on this road
Few
trip. They didn't hit
walks on both sides.
a
away.
few walks. Yeah, a few walks on both sides. I mean, again, we talked about before. This team doesn't walk a ton. I think they walked once on Yimmy Garcia came in, or is it Jimmy Garcia? I heard the broadcast saying Jimmy, but
I've always heard it as Yimmy myself.
the
It's
Guardians
also,
broadcast is saying Jimmy.
It's also me, so like it probably is Jimmy, and I'm just mishearing or misremembering. So I'm never gonna on pronunciation.
They didn't start walking until he came in, and obviously, he supposedly got hurt, whatever. I don't know. That was a weird situation there, but they almost battled back. I mean, they got big hits in the ninth inning.
Jimmy is how it is. The pronunciation guide on Baseball Reference is J.
Okay, they were definitely saying a J.
Yeah, Jimmy.
So there were a couple of bounces of the ball and a couple of walks on both sides, like you said, from having a road trip that was 5-3 or 6-2. And I did a poll last week.
Really fought back on this one. It was an impressive. You and I both they're not getting to 6 runs, and then they got to 6 runs.
Yeah, no. I after the grand slam, I was like, I don't think this team is scoring 6 runs today. They did have Jose, and congrats to Jose on baby number 2. That's why he was out this weekend. So
and good on him for taking that time. That is sometimes people comment on that. I think take time, be there when your baby's born. Hot take.
Yeah, definitely more important things there. And there's the old adage of what quote unquote dad strength. I saw an article on MLB.com about that, whether that was true or not. And there is like a small home run rate from certain when guys come back after having kids and all that stuff. So not really a thing, but there was a good quote in there saying that you're worried about your 3-day-old kid versus baseball. There are bigger things in life, so there is that aspect of things, which is always nice to think about. But no, I mean this could have been a worse road trip. Look, they took the series from Miami. Miami is not a good team. They split with Cincinnati, which Cincinnati came into the year with playoff expectations. That ballpark
12 and 16. 12 had won 12 of their last 16 entering that series.
Yeah, and that's a tough ballpark to play in. So that's that always can go anyway. And look, Tanner Bybee was one bad pitch away. It wasn't even a bad pitch, truthfully, to Candelario. We talked about last week. It wasn't even that bad of a pitch. It could have been a little bit lower. He could have buried it in a little more.
He was not happy.
It could have been better. Yeah, and I understand why, because they wants to win. But he still pitched a heck of a game, right? Yeah, you do want that. He still pitched a heck of a game, and I think there's still room for improvement for Bybee, which is great because he pitched great. So, that game can go a little bit differently. And then, today they had a couple of, walks that really didn't go their way. They didn't draw walks. So 4-4 is fine. Like you said, Toronto came into the year playoff expectations. They
made the postseason last year.
Yeah. And they got one big hit. I mean, really, Ben Lively said after the game, they got a couple of, lucky hits. That was an interesting way for him to determine. But you look at the exit velocities leading up to that grand slam by Varsho, they weren't hitting the ball that hard. Like a lot of those balls hit before he came up.
Vladdy's was hit pretty hard.
Yeah, and that what's funny about that is that ball went further than Varsho's home run. He hit it so hard nobody could advance. But just he walked a couple guys. That was the problem. Like you can't obviously walk guys in front there.
Third time through the lineup. That's why I
always liked.
Is a killer.
That was. Yeah, we were texting right there too, saying, "No, I think, that was."
We were
right.
Yeah, we were texting about it. It's the third time through, and he already had some struggles because I was like, "Man, I want someone up at the start of the once." It's the third time through the order for some of these guys. I just think you need someone up because it falls apart so quickly. We had a game last week. It was Tanner's, right? Where he walked the first 2 batters and then bam, it got away from him. Been seeing that happen.
Cincinnati game, I don't know. He was pitching so well that I couldn't have taken him out of that game, but. Nonetheless, I mean, that was still, again, he was, well, I wonder with Lively, he was coming back. They said he was good to go on Sunday, and he was coming back from that general stiffness and soreness they had checked out. And then I think he was on 8 days rest. They pushed him back a couple of days to be ready. So rustiness maybe. And just, again, that Blue Jays lineup is not hitting this year, but they should. You're looking at a lot of guys in that lineup. George Springer had a good weekend against them, and he's been terrible all year. Vlad Guerrero had a 3-hit game. He's a good hitter. And, Davis Schneider's.
Their rookies stepped up, and, Addison Berenger had a good weekend with the call. Ernie Clement had a revenge game.
Had a big game. Yeah, Ernie Clement. Yeah, thanks, Ernie Clement. Appreciate that.
mean, Ernie Clement had his best weekend ever, I believe. I mean, it's just I've never seen him have a weekend like that.
Not that this really means anything, because expected stats sometimes I think are confusing because it's basically saying what should have happened, but it didn't. I don't know how predictive expected stats can be going forward sometimes. But if you want to be that guy and look at or gal, whoever's listening, if you want to be that person and look at just Sunday's game, the Guardians had an expected batting average of 304, and the Blue Jays only had 264, and the Guardians had a better hard hit rate. Doesn't mean they won? I mean, the walks is what killed them. Obviously, they walked 6, 8. They walked 10. So those are strikeouts. 5. They still walked 6 batters. The Guardians didn't even walk once off of Garcia, actually. So, when you walk that many batters, that's what's going to happen. But if you want to look at some different things, though, the Guardians did score some runs late. They should have probably hit better than the Blue Jays did, and again, it just didn't go their way. They went 4-4 against, they won the series against a bad team, and they split, or they came close against 2 good teams the back way. I think the Blue Jays are still considered a decent team, and like you said, Jeff, they ran into 2 of the best pitchers for the Blue Jays. Like,
I mean, Barrios has been
beat
awesome
Gausman
this year. And Gosman's
Yeah.
been solid. Not as good as he's been in years past, but still, I mean, I would take him.
They beat him, and then they also scored
Yeah.
4 off of Jose Barrios. If you score 4 off of him, I'm happy with that. So yeah, it's just
100%.
the pitching just did the men. And Sandlin, I said this on Twitter. I said the Guardians came into the game with
Sandlin's ERA
the
jumped a run basically with this one.
Yeah, it's almost 4. So Sandlin had the lowest, like the 4th lowest BABIP in the league. The Blue Jays had like the 2nd lowest BABIP in the league as far as an offense goes, and the Guardians had the lowest walk rate in the league as far as the bullpen goes. All those things just kind of pushed to the mean today. Like, Sandlin's walk rate regressed to the mean a little bit. The Blue Jays average on balls in play regressed to the mean a little bit, and the Guardians finally, the bullpen walked some guys. Like, those are just things that haven't happened all year. They happen to happen today, and they happen to happen at the worst time. Like, this was a game, I think, generally of random variance. Like, the walks are bad, but there's still a lot of stretches where those things aren't happening for the Guardians, and they haven't happened for the Blue Jays. So you just ran into the law of averages a little bit, I think, over this road trip. Still 4-4 is pretty good. Yeah, so we'll talk about what the Guardians have been good at lately, what they're not good at, and what it means for this team going forward and what they need to shore up. We'll talk about, tinkering with the lineup and the pen usage, and we'll also get into the Guardians' tough stretch as head of the All-Star break. They do not have a lot of off days. It is going to be a tough one, so we'll get into all that here coming up.
First, let's talk about our good friends over at FanDuel.com. I was looking at some stats. It's interesting now to make the playoffs. There, you've taken Baltimore, New York off. Cleveland minus 590. What I'm not going to recommend at plus 7,500 is to take the White Sox or the Athletics. I think those are bad bets. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say do not bet on those teams to make the playoffs. That is the type of high level knowledge I can share about such things. If you want a bit of a sleeper, Pittsburgh at plus 600. If they keep bringing up reinforcements, so that is a fun team. Make sure to right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And then in addition, let's talk about Prize Picks. So there's not a bunch of games tomorrow. They added some Atlanta guys. Atlanta is going up against Detroit, but I was looking at, this is a terrible pitching matchup with Philly is throwing, Christopher Sanchez is good. Okay, he's good, but they're facing Randy Vasquez. So I know Schwarber walks a lot, and I don't love the 1.5 bases, but I kind of do because Vasquez doesn't actually walk. So a lot of guys. So you're looking at an opportunity for guys to make contact. He does not strike out a lot. There's going to be a lot of contact in this game. Low strikeout, low walk is what Randy Vasquez is. So I kind of like Bryce Harper at 1.5 bases, kind of like Schwarber at 1.5 as well. That definitely stood out. He is at 4 pitcher strikeouts versus Philly. I also kind of like the more on that because his K per 9 is over 6. And they might need him to go some innings. So that one is an interesting one. And then Max Fried at 6. I know he doesn't miss a ton of bats, but Detroit has struggled massively this year. If this sounds good to you, go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That is LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. You are muted, Justin.
I'm better than that. I wasn't yelling, but if you're tired of listening to the yelling on Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day, and you have to turn down the volume, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories, not all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today is bringing you can't miss analysis. It's all local analysis, opinions, news, and streaming. These are the people that know your team better than anybody on these national networks. Yeah. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube with the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we cover your team every day, including the Guardians, of course. Just looking at the Guardians lineup, like right now, like Stephen Kwan, I think we should talk about Stephen Kwan for a second because he's hitting like 500 since coming off the injured list. He's
unbelievable.
It's still amazing that he came off the injured list. Like I think last week we mentioned this real quickly, but I don't know how many at bats or plate appearances he needs to qualify for the batting title again. But he's hitting 390. Yeah, he's getting close. He's hitting 390. It's just absurd. And we're talking about June. I know he missed a month worth of at bats or plate appearances.
He looks like someone who has put like MLB The Show on beginner mode. Like that's what it is with him right now. That's like,
no, that's true.
You know, it's like you're doing the My Dynasty thing, and you want your guy to be really good because it's you. Like that's what Stephen Kwan looks like right now is the beginner mode because you're just trying to like max your guy out quickly.
Right. He's got a 12% walk rate in June, a 4.9% strikeout rate.
Which is a huge part of that. Like he's very well. He's working, he knows everything very well. And it just, that walk rate is such a big part of his success because it has not been there. I mean, it's almost double his career. Like that's what's making him so deadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When he is in control of his zone and not getting over aggressive, I think he just knows his approach so well. And, I think the extended approach this year to again hunt for good stuff ahead in counts. I think pitchers are more fearful of that now with him. Is that if he is getting ahead in the count, they know he is going to try to rip one on them, and he's not afraid to do that. So I think they're a little more afraid to try to give him something in the zone, trying to get back in the count, which I think is leading to more walks because they're not. I mean, a year ago, 2 years ago. If he's up 2-0, you got Stephen Kwan, who was like, well, I'm going to ground out to second base before I strike out. Not necessarily, but like that was generally what he would do, right? Now he is like, okay, I'm going to try to hit this ball in the gap. I'm going to try to flick one here. And I think pitchers are aware of that, and it's causing them to not attack him as aggressively anymore. And again, that's why I think his walks are going up. 2-0 counts this year. He's hitting 308.
He's eliminated his passivity, which is leading to more walks, which is an interesting thing. Like that's not what you expect. But it shows like the importance of like, having a new approach and just what he's done. Like, again, I didn't expect him to be able to quite level up the way he has. It's very hard to kind of change your approach in the way he has. It almost never happens, but it's good on him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He's got a 229 WRC plus with two balls now. He's also, that's unbelievable. Okay. Stephen Kwan has a 129 WRC plus at 0-2. At 0-2 in the count. He is not below league average in any count this year. That is his worst count this year by WRC plus is 2-2 at 119. At 2-2. So he's just trying to put the ball in play there, and he's walking 10% of the time. He's only slugging 412, but again, he's not trying to hit home run at the 2 straight count. But that's unbelievable. And that brings me to the next point. The Guardians have to do something about the lineup around him. Like Kwan and Jose are clearly your number one.
They need to hit back to back. They need to hit back.
Yes. Yes. I think when Jose comes back on Tuesday, I think you've got to move him up there. Like I know Freeman had the hit in the late in the game on Sunday.
He also had 2 double plays, which helped short circuit things as well. Like he came through in the 9th, which is great. Like he's still his runs created plus is or not right. His OPS is the same, I believe now is Andre. So they're really close. Like he's playing well. He's not playing great. He's playing well, but like 2 is not an ideal spot for him.
No, and hitting Bo Naylor 9th is also, I think, hurting right now too, because like there are times where Bo Naylor looks like he's starting to come out of it, but he's not. Like and I know hitting him 9th, you're like, okay, you're minimizing his at bats. He's getting less at bats by hitting 9th, but I think hitting him 8th at least allows you to hit somebody else 9th that turns the lineup over. Like remember when pitchers used to be able to hit there were times where, like, and I know Tony La Russa
Yeah.
in the late years kind of fell off things, but Tony La Russa was kind of at the forefront of hitting pitchers 8, so you could have someone in the 9 hole, a better hitter, turning it over to the top of your order. And that's what the Guardians need right now. Bo Naylor right now, like, at this point, anything you get from him offensively is a bonus. Like, he is just,
he's a 50 weighted runs created plus coming to the day. I mean, it's bad. It's really,
and
he's one of the worst hitters in baseball right now. He's Miles Strawing it.
yeah, and you're going to keep him in the lineup because he's framing well. And look, they don't have anywhere else to turn. Like, you might sit there and say David Fry, but David Fry is better off being able to be free to play elsewhere and then catch occasionally or pinch hit late in the game. And also, David Fry's had his own fall off in the month of June. David Fry, I think, has a 68. No, it's a 74 WRC plus. So the month of June so far, it's a small sample, but hasn't been good for David Fry. He has regressed a little, which he wasn't going to keep that run up anyway. But he'll get back to being fine. I'm not worried about him. The walk rate is not as high as it was. He's not striking out, but David Fry is a guy who's struggling right now himself, but also you don't want to chain him to catching and then dump on Bo Naylor. I think the only way he gets better is just playing, unfortunately. But I don't know. Do you move Tyler Freeman down to the 9 hole for the time being, and that way you have, the ground ball level plays are less of an issue down at that side. And if he gets on base for Quan, like, Quan's not trying to drive in runs, but when you have 4 hits in a game and you're driving in 1 run, you're only scoring 1 run. That's a problem. You can't waste that.
Or you flip him, or it's Freeman 1, Quan 2. I think he's 1 or 9. I don't like him in 2, but I think with his speed and ability in there, I mean, I don't. And the upside to hitting 1 is, why do we say Ahmed should hit there for a long time? Because you can't hit into the double play. If you're hitting 1, Freeman does lead the team in double play.
You're only guaranteed to lead off once. That's the thing.
But no, I get that. But yeah, it's just 2 is not a great spot for him. That's just the truth of it.
It's not. Again, like you said before, I think there needs to be no separation. I know they've been reluctant to hold Jose into the 2 spot. He's done it occasionally. I just think you need to give it a shot. Let it go for the next few weeks, see what happens. And
do you think there's any concern? Because he kind of didn't they start the year there and he had all of his struggles and they're like, nope, just put him where he's comfortable with. In that case, let Quan hit 2. Like I said, figure something out.
Yeah, just no separation between the 2 of them. I'd hate to take away more at bats from Quan at like 1 and 2. You're getting the most at bats hitting 1, and I would really want Quan, if you can, lead off the inning in the 9th, especially if you're trailing. But yeah, there needs to be no separation. Just try it for the next few weeks. I don't think it had anything. I mean, it was such a small sample. I don't know how much you can really dig into, that being the struggle for Jose. I think it was early in the year they were doing it against lefties, and then. Yeah, I don't know. I think, like you said, there needs to be no separation there.
So I will say the difference between batting first and batting second over this full season is 13.8 of bats. So it's not 13.8 at bats is all you're taking away there.
In theory, I know. I think it depends on the flow of the game and situation. Like, depending on how you're
on
going,
average, that's what you're taking away.
But who do you want to have that extra bat in the 9th or the 10th inning? You want it to be Quan or do you want it to be Freeman?
I mean, I just want Quan and Jose back to back is more important to me than anything else.
So
however you're going to work that out,
however
you're going to work that out, that is what is important. The other part is lesser to me than having your 2 best hitters there because Josh is still having his ups and downs. Like you need those 2 going.
We'll get into more of that. We'll talk about the stretch ahead for the Guardians all on the other side. Get supplies from the site that is made for skilled traders, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts, over 400 top brands, and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. How many times are you calling different companies and you're not getting a real person? You're having to hit all kinds of buttons and do all kinds of things. Not with Supplyhouse. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining Supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to their own dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at Supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks. at supplyhouse.com. No Guardians action today on Monday, but on Tuesday, the Mariners are coming to town. We're going to talk about that in just a second here, and you can catch all the action on the radio. 6:40 is the first pitch on Tuesday. Just search Guardians on the XM app to get all that action. The lineup, we had a lot of talk about this off the air. I don't think we're going to get to it today, but just what's going to be available in the trade market. Like, this is why I continue to say starting pitching is definitely a need for the Guardians, but they need to do something to lengthen the lineup because
Connor Joe, we got some fun talks with Connor Joe.
Talk about that. Yeah, like Friday. Brian Rocchio. By the way, congrats to Brian Rocchio, 2 home runs on the road trip.
I'm hoping that's a good sign.
Yeah, Daniel Schneemann, his first career home run. Daniel Schneemann, at this point where they are in the season and with what's on their roster, I think you play Schneemann every day. Maybe you don't play him against lefties, but I think right now against righties, you put him in there every day and you see what happens because what do you have to lose right now in terms like see if he can be a dude. Like you have a 5-game lead. The Guardians do have a little bit of cushion here. The Royals play the Dodgers and that was a tough series.
They broke Mookie Betts to make everyone dislike them. That's everyone's rooting for Cleveland now.
Yeah, no one likes breaking Mookie Betts, but like you've got some cushion here. Again, this is what I'm saying. We can get into this more, I think, on Tuesday's show, but possibly or later in the week. But this is the stretch here to figure out things from guys like Daniel Schneemann or dare I say, Jose Tena or Jonathan Rodriguez or John Kensington. Like this is your stretch to figure this out. Like I know Will Brennan hit a home run on this road trip and he had a big game on Friday, which is why they won. But like overall, I just don't see the stuff from him to make him an everyday player. Josh Naylor still has to figure it out at this point. Like he is Josh Naylor. That's the one thing they need to get Josh Naylor going at some point. But like this lineup still has some shortcomings. They're doing okay overall, but it's Quan, it's Jose, and then it's the flavor of the day, right? It's Daniel Schneemann if he has a good day, or if it's David Fry if he's hot. Like that's a little bit of random variance, which you need in the playoffs, but you also need some more reliable hitters. So I know starting pitching is what everybody wants to go after, but I think a bat is going to be more impactful for this team. We'll have this discussion another day, so another time to do it today. But I think a bat and maybe even reliever might be more impactful for this team, especially if the price for a starting pitcher is so high. And everyone wants to sit there and say, well, bring up Andrew Walters. Andrew Walters is not having a good time in Columbus right now. And this is why people in the offseason were like, oh, trade Class A, do trade relievers because you've got, Alamon coming. You got Walters. Well, guess what? It's June 16th, June 17th. Alamon's on the IL for the last month, and Walters is having a hard time at AAA. This is why you don't make moves in the offseason based on what you have in the minors. And especially relievers. So
it's when people talk about like
I would even add a reliever.
Yeah, and when people talk about like, oh, let's trade, let's go out and add a Heston Jerstad for relievers. It's like no, because this is a contending team now. Backbone. You're not. Well, it's more that you're not trading. You're not trading proven pieces for unproven pieces, right? Like we loved Rocchio. Like coming up, he was a 100, top 100 everywhere. We're still not sure if he's going to be answered shortstop. Like 20 there's no guarantees. And he's one of the safest prospects, like coming up wise. Like he was a very safe profile.
You thought, defensively.
You thought he would be at least an average guy. Like no one is safe. So no, if you're going to trade, you have to trade for proven. That's my hill to die.
Yeah, Baltimore's not giving you a proven bat. I don't think it makes sense.
No.
To go out and flip an asset for a guy that's not proven, especially right now, and especially from the unit on your team that's the most reliable so far. Like if the Guardians are going to get in the playoffs, but if you can't trade the best unit on your team unless you like that's going to be the unit on the team that's going to make the most impact in the playoffs. They can shorten games with this bullpen, and that's how they're going to have to win. I don't know how they're going to have to win this upcoming stretch. So Seattle comes to town starting on Tuesday. You're facing Bryce Miller, who's been really good. You're facing Brian Wu, who is good, but has had some injury issues this year. And you got Luis Castillo, who Cleveland's had an up and down history against. Sometimes they hit him really good, sometimes they don't. But I don't even know who's on this team anymore that would have hit him good. But this is a tough stretch. They're going to play 25 games in 26 days. You've got Baltimore and Toronto after the Seattle series. I know the White Sox are mixed in there, but the Guardians have one off day up until the All-Star break. This is going to be a really tough stretch for them. They're going to have to manage this bullpen really well. They're going to need to give it leads to protect. Starting pitching is going to have to be good. They're going to have to figure this. They're going to have to figure this thing out. I'm not saying you're going to lose the lead in the next 26 days for the division. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be kind of a dog days of summer kind of stretch. And you know, I think we'll find out a lot. I think we already know what the Guardians need and what they go after. But I think this is going to be a very telling stretch for them, whether or not, like, you know, is McKenzie going to hold up? Is Allen going to be a guy you can count on the playoffs? Is Bybee going to take that next step? Gavin Williams at some point in this next stretch come back, although his rehab outing was shaky on Saturday. So you're going to find out a lot about some guys on this team over the next 26 days, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the whole, what do you have to give the guys enough at bats to prove anything, and then you also have to figure out like so it's so hard to navigate, negotiate. Valera definitely is the guy who stands out to me, just because he's been that guy for a while. So I'm personally of the point of view in that, but at the same time, like Valera is interesting. Will Brennan is who he is. I'd still rather trade for Connor Cho, who probably can't play a lick of outfield defense, but at least we know what he can do as a right-handed bat. Like, that's the thing. It's still, at the end of the day, I'm just looking for some kind of upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, Gabriel Arias is only here for his defense at this point. Like, they clearly don't trust him.
Yeah.
The amount he's played. I mean, Schneemann got a chance to play third base this whole series with Jose out. So I don't think, did Gabriel Arias even appear in a game Saturday or Sunday?
I can't recall if he might have appeared late in Saturday. He was not in Sunday.
No.
I had to go to a graduation party, so I didn't get to watch all of Saturday, if I'm being honest. But they're not trusting his bat. They're leaning into Schneemann, as they should. So we talked about him.
He didn't play Saturday either. Yeah.
He doesn't have to be Mr. Forever. He has to be Mr. Right Now. And they need an Oscar Gonzalez more than they need they just need someone who can step in, like Oscar did in 2 years ago. So that's the important thing, and Schneemann's doing that.
Yeah, and not to say that this team is going to be like the next 25 games in the 26 days. It's not going to be like, oh, well, you can learn everything you need to know in this next stretch. But I think you're also, that's still 25 games is not a big sample, but I think it's going to be a big contributor to the overall picture in this stretch. You got Kansas City in this stretch too, which is going to be tough. When you go into that series, I think you want to have like a 5-game lead. So if the worst case scenario happens where you have you get swept somehow, you still have a 2-game cushion there. So we'll see. It's going to be a battle, but I think starting pitching is going to be a key during that stretch. Is Williams going to come back? Like I said, is McKenzie going to survive that stretch? Logan Allen's last 2 starts were better. Friday was not
very
terrible,
encouraging.
So yeah, his Miami start was good. Friday was good for Logan Allen. That's a step in the right direction for sure. You're going to need innings out of the starters. You're definitely going to manage the bullpen very carefully, because without the off days, we'll see what happens there. But hopefully we have a special show coming for you on Tuesday. We'll see about that. But we got more draft stuff to talk about as well. And obviously we'll get into the Mariners series as well.
I'll give this teaser that tomorrow's show will be fun if you are a Clemson fan, as long as everything comes together. But thank you all for joining us. And a prospect fan. Thank you all for joining us, rating, reviewing, downloading. It helps. Make sure to check out the mock from Friday, and go Guardians, go.